So I am going to call this meeting to order. Lillian, will you please take a roll call?
Of course. Commissioner Almond? No. Commissioner Angela?
Here.
Commissioner Barish?
He's here.
Yeah, he is. Commissioner Diamond?
I'm here.
Commissioner Liberty?
Here.
Commissioner Myrtle?
Here.
Commissioner Miller?
Here.
Commissioner Riley?
Here.
Commissioner Weir?
Here.
And Chair Moscotti.
Here.
Commissioner Rich is not able to join us today. She did let us know she had a prior commitment, so she was not going to be able to join today's meeting.
Okay, thank you. And I'm sure Commissioner Allman will join if he can. Thank you very much. Welcome, everyone. Happy June. The year is half over, almost. And do we have any public expression, Lillian?
No, I do not see any. Oh, we do. From Supervisor Haschak.
Supervisor Haschak, please.
Hi, thank you. Hey, I was just wondering about the independent audit that the Board of Supervisors had requested of the Measure B committee. So I was wondering what progress has been made on that.
Okay, I'm going to defer to those who know better than I do, which would be either Commissioner Angelo or Commissioner Miller, please.
So yeah, Donna, I will give an update. So we reached out to the company that we currently have a contract with through the auditor's office to see if they were willing to work with us and whether or not their contract would be similar to what we're requesting. Their main person was on vacation, but was able to get back to us just recently. This is something that they can and do. They do it for multiple different for counties and different companies. And so we are in the process of writing a contract specific for Measure B to have this performed. And they do feel they can do a very thorough audit of the Measure B finances.
Does that answer your question, Supervisor?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Hearing none, we will move on to 3A, approval of the minutes from the April 28th, 2021 meeting. And I'd like to remind everyone that we did cancel the May meeting due to the fact that we had a joint meeting, which we will get to later. Do I have any comments from the committee on the minutes, or do I have a motion to accept, please?
I'll move acceptance of the minutes as submitted.
Thank you, Commissioner Riley. Do I have a second?
I second.
Thank you, Commissioner Diamond. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or any abstentions, please? Okay, minutes passed. Thank you very much. Now we move on to 3B, the June 2021 Measure B financial report. Dr. Miller, would you like to speak to that? Or excuse me, Andy, excuse me. I am sorry. My mistake.
Good afternoon, everyone. There wasn't, let's see here. I just added what was expended. I added some more of the staff charges on the bottom of the first or second, I think it was, page. And then on the project page on the bottom, I added the like a contract payment summary, so you can see what contract we have, the contract amount, and what we paid to date, and then the balance to help. It's hard to read it up above because it's by line item, so I just summarized it down below, so you can have a little bit an easier time to read what we've paid to date by contractor. And I don't know if there's any questions or.
Are there any questions, please, from the committee? Ace, I've been told that if you can press *6, you might be able to unmute your cell phone so that we can actually hear you. Okay, does anyone have any questions regarding the budget, please?
Ace is also muted on the computer, just,
Oh, I can't see that on my end.
yeah, he's got to unmute both.
He's saying he can't on the phone. Can you unmute Ace on your computer?
Well, we're pretty good at reading
There.
lips or the nod.
So
Yeah,
Ace, you
now he
having fun
did.
there, bud?
Are you on with us, Ace, now? Okay,
He
so
was.
are there any questions regarding the budget?
Hey, Donna, this is Lloyd. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
I think I just highlight everybody that it looks like we're coming to the end of our third year of actual monthly proceeds. So 2 more years at the half-cent amount, and then we will drop to the 1/8 cent. So just wanted to alert everybody that we're 3/5 of the way through this for the funding, major funding.
Okay, thank you very much. Does anyone have any further questions, please? Is there any public comment, Lillian?
No.
Thank you. So update, we'll move on to 3C, update and discussion regarding Measure B related items at the Board of Supervisors. Just to do a little synopsis of what happened, I know most of you were here and present during the May 24th meeting. It was decided by the Board of Supervisors to go ahead with a PUF, and it was decided to look at Whitmore Lane. And we do have an update on that. So Dr. Miller, please.
All right, so as you know, there was a decision to move forward with a feasibility study of Whitmore Lane. We have met with Nocton Lewis to start the conversations. There was a walkthrough. Nocton Lewis did complete a walkthrough, and there has to be a little bit of some contract language change because the original contract focused more on Orchard Street. So not dollar change, but some language change. So we'll be working with them to make any changes that are necessary to move forward with Whitmore Lane. However, they are moving forward at this time, and they are hopeful that by the end of July, we will have some financial numbers that we brought to the Board of Supervisors on what they're proposing on what they need to demolish and what the cost would be. So that's a preliminary, but we are hopeful that we should have something by the end of July.
Thank you, Dr. Miller. And do we have questions on that, please?
Yeah, I had a question,
Yes, Commissioner
Janine.
Diamond.
Two questions. One was this a facility that we found out about recently, or I wondered why we didn't know about it earlier when we were looking at options? And secondly, just if it looks like a viable option, do you have any sense of, from your experience with it, I don't know the facility, what you think in terms of its potential viability as a PUF unit?
So the building was bought by the county to house COVID for, we had state funds that came down to allow us to purchase the building so that we could provide a place for isolation and quarantine. And that's what the building had been used for, was for COVID isolation and quarantine. We had been looking at this building to actually do some other services. Carmel was really dedicated to trying to bring some additional SUDT services to Mendocino County, really with a focus on women and children, and that this could be an opportunity to have a residential and some detox options for that specialized population that we don't have we don't have locally. As we continue to look for an option for our PUF, we looked for some options. Obviously, we explored Old Howard Hospital. We looked at the ranch proposal. There was a lot of kickback and a lot of different reasons. They were not the right options based on community feedback. And so then Carmel brought forward Whitmore Lane as an option, as a potential option. It's an old skilled nursing facility. So that is what it is at this point. We do have to look at, psych facilities used to be OSHPOD 1. One of the changes with OSHPOD is now they have their OSHPOD 5, but they still, even as an OSHPOD 5, they still have some OSHPOD 1 requirements. So the building is older. It is a very large and nice building. There is that we will have to demolish a portion of the building to be able to bring it up to OSHPOD 5 standards, but it is, I think, a good location and a very viable option for a psychiatric health facility, which is why we're moving forward with the feasibility study. So I do think it's a good location and a good option, and we'll see what the feasibility brings back.
Thank you.
Did that answer both of your questions, Doctor?
Yes, it did. Thanks.
Okay. Anyone else, please? Okay. Any public comment, please?
Yes, we have Joe Silva.
Yes, please, Joe.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I just took a drive-by at the Whitmore Lane place, and I was horrified. And I know that once it's 2/3 demolished, that it could look very different. I would hope it would have maybe a craftsman style or some sort of big timber or very warm, welcoming aspect. But it's hard to see on the plot of land that it looked like. In other words, there's basically driveways all around the facility, if you haven't looked at it. And then what the part that's fenced in closer looks like it's just concrete. So I would not want to be there to heal. I would not want any member of my family to be there to heal. And I think that the ranch facility possibility should be really looked at again. The other comment I have about the Whitmore Lane place is that I think that there needs to be some design specifics that need to be put into whatever is done either there or at some other possibility. And the design specifics need to consider things of friendly family meeting rooms, other meeting rooms, comfortable places, home-like facility, rather than the white-walled hospital facilities. The other comment I have to make is that regardless of what facility or design or whatever happens, the main shebang has to be really good care. Doctors who are sensitive to that every single person that goes through there needs to be able to come out and be part of the wider world, need to have those options and not be drugged for life and are unable to participate or be anything other than a severe mentally retarded person. Mentally incapacitated person, excuse me. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Josephine. Appreciate it. Thank you very much for your comments. Anyone else? Any further public comment?
Yes, we have Joe Bradley.
Joe, please. Joe? I know you're on. I can see
I'm here.
There you are.
All right. I have not driven by that facility yet. I've hardly been over the hill in a year and a half. However, I'm ecstatic because I looked at it from Google Earth. It looks like it has the potential to be what we want it to be. The fact there's a bus stop right there is a good thing. It can be gotten to from the freeway easily, and it's close enough to medical facilities. And yes, I understand it's going to need a lot of work, but I can't imagine that needing a lot of work is going to cost more than buying a whole new property and going through all those hoops. So I'm excited about it, and I'm thrilled that Carmel brought it up and that the Board of Supervisors offered it to us. So I'm looking forward to us having a facility and that our families and friends don't have to go out of county anymore. So thank you.
Thank you, Jill. Appreciate your comments. Anyone else? Any further committee comment on anything? Any questions from the committee? Okay. Moving on to 3D, discussion and board action, possible board action regarding the mental health trip for us to meet every other month. I'm just throwing this out there again. I brought it up in, I believe, October or November of last year, and we said we would revisit it. So I am going to just throw this out there. I would like to see us meet every other month, once a quarter, whatever works for the committee. We do have a job to do, but if we don't have to meet, we don't have to. And if something comes up, someone wants something to be put on an agenda, all you have to do is call me, say, Donna, we need this on the agenda. It needs to happen right now. And we schedule a meeting. So I'm just throwing it out there. You guys let me know what you feel, because this is a committee of 11. So please give me your thoughts.
Yeah, I'd like to ask a question. It seemed to me, and excuse me if I'm not remembering, it's been a while. There was some discussion about a re-looking at the duties of this committee, what we would be responsible for. I can't remember exactly the details of that, but it seems to me that how often we meet would relate to what it is our purpose is. And it may have changed, obviously, from when we began 3 years ago. We've been involved in a whole lot of things. And I think if I remember right, some of the thinking of the person who raised that question was maybe we're at a time in the evolution of this group where we really would have a different function or a different focus then that might determine how often would make sense to meet. So could anybody kind of remember and review for me what that was? I see Shannon with her hand up. I'd like to hear more about that if you remember.
Absolutely. Commissioner Riley, please.
Yeah, thank you, Jed. Yeah, I initiated that conversation originally, and there was an ad hoc committee developed to talk about the possible kind of redefinition of this committee. And we did, so we met with that ad hoc committee and with the two supervisors who are assigned to the Board of Supervisors ad hoc for Measure B. And there was consensus that this was an appropriate direction to go. We brought that back for a brief discussion with this group, and they as well said, go forth and continue, down this path. It was contingent upon the development and adoption of a strategic plan that was available to the public and transparent, that specifically included action steps and responsible parties and timelines. And so we did begin heading down that path. We asked for a consultant to be hired if need be to accomplish that, since the Kemper Ad Hoc Committee was not able to complete the development of a strategic plan. And then the Board of Supervisors kind of just made their own decisions about moving forward with the PUF, about adopting the Kemper report as a strategic plan as is. And so I don't really know what to do with that ad hoc at this point. I'll be honest with you. At this point, the Measure B committee is either just a rubber stamp or a scapegoat. I don't believe we're serving any functional purpose here other than, if anything, slowing things down. So I do still believe that that we could better serve the process and the voters by becoming more of a fiscal oversight group that met on a less regular basis, simply to compare the strategic plan to the work that's actually completed to the independent audit. So, but unfortunately, the things that need to be in place for that to really effectively and transparently function are a strategic plan that has a financial plan associated with it, and an independent audit, and we don't have either of those things.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Riley. Commissioner Diamond, please.
So thank you. Now I recall where things were, and I'm glad to get the update. It seemed to me that we clearly are moving to a different value of what we can contribute. And I think those, I'll speak for myself, as somebody who's been on the committee from the beginning, I want to be sure that I'm doing what is most helpful for the plan and the community and for the taxpayers that have continued to be paying every day to have money available for mental health services. And if I'm not serving a value, quite frankly, there's a lot of other things that are being asked of me to do. And, you know, if I'm not being helpful, I'd do something else. So I guess my question for you, Shannon, or any of the, I can't remember who else is on the committee. It seems that something else should happen from here if we're going to be of use, whether it's some relook at getting the actual plan in place, or if that's not going to happen, then maybe a recommendation about this committee of what we should be doing or what our value could be in lieu of, if we can't move ahead along the lines that the committee had been put together to do, and if it's either the supervisors don't want it or there doesn't seem to be a way forward. I guess I'm looking for some more direction from you or from what you think would be proper moving ahead, because the feeling I get from what you said is it makes me wonder then, so what value do we have moving ahead? And I don't want to give up on our value if there is something moving ahead, but if we've done our job and it's time to to turn it back to the supervisors or revise the mandate. Anyway, I'd like more guidance if you have any suggestions.
Yeah, if I may, through the chair.
Yes, perfectly.
I appreciate the comments, Jed. This committee is required through the ordinance that was voted on. So we do need to exist in some form. And I think my interpretation of the way the ordinance reads is that we can just be a fiscal oversight committee, and we have comparable committees through the city of Ukiah who oversee sales tax measures. But the problem is the only way we can effectively do that is if we have a tool to measure it against. And right now those tools aren't in place, and we don't have any spending authority on our own, only the supervisors do. And They directed that we use the Kemper report as our strategic plan, but I think there was pretty general agreement that the financial component of that report probably needed a second look, may not be completely accurate. And so without anything to compare the work that's being done against, I don't even know how we can be a fiscal oversight committee. So it would involve the support of the supervisors for sure. And at this point, quite honestly, they just seem pretty intent on getting the PUF done and furthering a couple of specific projects. And so I don't really know what role we can provide under that scenario, Jed, to be honest with you. And I would love to hear from other committee members as well.
Thank you, Commissioner Riley. Commissioner Diamond, any further questions?
Not at this time.
Any further committee comment, please?
Chair, I've got my hand up.
Ross, sorry, I don't see your hand, but fine, go.
So actually, I think Judd's points are well taken, and Shannon, I think, is being very, very kind in her restraint. She's that, basically, yeah, I think those are really good questions. Like, well, what is our value add, right? What are we doing? If you look at what we've accomplished, we've taken some $25 million from taxpayers, and you look at what we've accomplished and what client have we helped this far. I don't, that ultimately has to be the metric, right? That's what people actually voted for, was actually to make a difference in clients' lives and the community's lives. And we are hopefully on our way to making a difference, but we don't have, as Shannon pointed out, we don't have any spending authority. Frankly, we can vote on things all day long, but if the staff doesn't want it to happen, and to a lesser extent, frankly, a much lesser extent, if the board doesn't want it to happen, it doesn't happen. And so given that we don't have hire or fire authority, we don't have spending authority, I think the only thing we can do is, we don't have the spending authority to do this, but I've got a solution. But the only thing we can do is daylight to the public what we have or have not accomplished, and I can help with that. I have spending authority, but only with my own money, and I can do that. And so if we want to run some ads, I think we need to daylight what's happening. The only thing that will fix the problems that we're seeing, given how hamstrung this committee is, the only thing we can do is daylight it to the community.
I don't hear you anymore.
Really?
What?
Did I go mute?
I don't know what happened. Somebody came over you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. I was probably rambling too long anyway, so maybe that was a blessing. But I think we need to daylight what we think we're doing right, what we think we're doing wrong. But right now, we are completely powerless, and frankly, if you look at by any reasonable metric, which I agree with Shannon, we need to put metrics into into a strategic plan. If you don't have something to judge against, you would never do this to an employee, right? To have an employee and you tell them to come to work every day, and then you don't tell them what they're supposed to do or measure by which they do it, then they would quit, right? Well, and we're having the same thoughts. Jed's being very kind in the way he puts it. It's like, I got other things to do, folks. So my take is we're not going at this right. We're not going at this right. And the best metric to judge that by is, what have we done for a client? What point me to the client we've helped.
Okay, Ross, I'm going to cut you off just really quick, because we have helped people, and we don't see it here at Measure B because most of us are not on the ground floor. I am on the ground floor, and I have dealt with things. The clients are so excited about the CRT coming in. The mobile outreach unit, we have one of those working, and it is working. And unfortunately, maybe it's my fault because I'm chair of this committee that I don't show you those things that we have actually done. And we can take credit for it as Measure B or not take credit for it as Measure B. The Board of Supervisors is the ultimate authority. But we sit here and we talk like we haven't done a damn thing, and we have. You may not see it, but we have. And if you're not on the ground floor, you don't see. So, and I get your frustrations, I get everything, but we have done things. We have a training center that's ready to open. We have a CRT that is going to open in the next 3 or 4 months. We have the mobile outreach unit. I know I'm repeating myself. We have one person, we have one outreach. Yes, we don't have the 3 that we were supposed to have. We will get there, but you have to hire the right people. That's working extremely well, but we don't hear it. And that's probably the problem. Nobody hears what's going right. Only people hear what's going wrong. So that's my comment on that. Commissioner Riley, please.
Yeah, thanks, Donna, for sharing that information. It's good to hear that some of the clients are aware of some of the work that has happened. I think the criticism maybe is not that the money hasn't done anything, but rather that this committee hasn't done anything. I think county staff and the supervisors have put Measure B money to work, but how effective has this committee been in facilitating or implementing that? I think that's the discussion that we're actually having here. And what I want to get to is using this money more transparently, more effectively, and more efficiently. And right now, I don't think this committee is helping that through no fault of our own. We tried something. This was new. I don't think any other agency or county that I know of has this kind of funding source. And we thought this system would work, and it's not. So we've got to figure out a way to make it work better. As Lloyd pointed out earlier, we're 3/5 of the way into the collection of the money. We only have 2 more years to collect that 0.5-cent sales tax. So we need to be as efficient as possible.
Thank you, Commissioner Riley. Any further comments from the commissioners, please?
Yeah, I have just one added comment. I agree with what Donna and Shannon have said. Is anybody that's worked in any mental health or any government work recognized, I think, as I did and many of you did, anytime you have an 11-person board making recommendations to a 6-person, supervisors who makes the ultimate decisions, it's a structure that is diverse and brings in a lot of different points of view, but is difficult to make and recommend good decisions. I think we've done amazingly well given the structure that we had to work with and given the challenges, not just structural, that we faced, including COVID. And I think we've done remarkably well, and we certainly have accomplished a lot. I feel good with what we've accomplished. And I think what Shannon has been saying, at least to me, and I think to the rest of the committee, is given what we still have to do, and there's still, money that's coming in, there's still things that need to be decided, what structure would serve us moving ahead? And it seems that we have now some experiences of what's worked and what hasn't. And I think I agree with Shannon, we need a different kind of structure and perhaps some different guidelines about what our purpose will be moving ahead. And I hear that part of the constraint is the law that created us has some restrictions of how many of us there need to be, and what the makeup is of the 11 of us. So it may be a little challenging to work through a new structure, but I think it's worth doing. And I don't know that we can do what we need to do today, but I think is a worthy continuation of however the subcommittee that Shannon was a part of, or a recommendation from that committee moving ahead to say, okay, well, what's the next thing that we need to do? And I don't know what that is, and you might have some suggestions, or maybe somebody else does, but I think we need to come up with something. I don't think we can just,
Okay.
put it on hold and hope that things will change after a puff movement kind of moves along. I think we need to continue to come up with some new ideas and a new structure for us.
Well, I'd be willing
Jen,
to.
Phil, hold on, everybody, please. I have allowed this discussion to go off topic, and I did it on purpose because this is actually really good conversation to have. The agenda item is whether we meet every month or not. And I allowed the conversation to get a little bit out of hand. I apologize to the public for that, but we needed to hear all of this. So I have two people from the public who would like to weigh in. Then we will move back, and then we will come back to the item at hand. And if we need to, we will put an agenda item on our next agenda to discuss this more thoroughly. And I thank you for your patience with me. So Supervisor Haschak, are you up?
Yes, thank you, Chair Muschetti. So, I do think that was a very useful conversation, because how do you know how many meetings if you don't know what the meetings are for? And so I appreciate the comments made. We did have this ad hoc meeting, and we talked about what the purpose was, and we talked about a strategic plan and the fiscal plan. And we're seeing, a lot of things being done. I just went by the CRT and it looked beautiful, and it's being built. So, we're going ahead with the PUF, we're doing the MOPS, the community awareness and education program. And, I'd like to get an update on that, the aftercare program that we approved. Those are things that we should be keeping an eye on. But I think that when we look at the budget overall, do we have a plan besides the year-to-year budget about how we're going to spend the 25 million? And, we've heard about the PUF costing from maybe 8 million for renovating a project and up to 25 million for redoing the Whitmore Lane. And so where are we between those two numbers, 8 million and 25 million? And if we don't have a plan for controlling this money and the vision for what we want to do as with the Measure B money, we're going to spend the 25 million and that's going to be it. And we'll probably have to do a reflooring or something else. And so I'm just saying that there is a big role for the Measure B committee still of watching how this money is being spent, helping, make those recommendations as we go along, because what is it going to be, 8 million or 25 million for this PUF? And then what else are priorities? And so if we had a big picture of a strategic plan with priorities, we might say, hey, we want the $15 million PUF and we wanted to spend the 10 million on these other programs. So with that, I just hope that the committee can keep working on these issues and really come up with a fiscal plan for it all. So thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Haschak. Joe Bradley, did you have a
Yep, I do.
Okay,
for a couple of things. Number one, I agree with Supervisor Haschak. You guys are basically an advisory board. You have oversight. You get to weigh in and bring things forward. I've been on advisory boards. There's nothing fiscal about it other than looking at things, suggesting new things going forward. And Measure B started out slow. You guys had to figure out which direction you were going and put all of you in the same boat. And I've been watching this since the beginning. And you guys are doing much, much better. Maybe you don't think so, but you are. And look at the accomplishments. As Donna brought up, I can't tell you how excited. I can only speak for myself. I am on the BHAB board. But like, for instance, the meeting that we had accomplished so much that we had jointly, because everybody could see each other and talk, and there wasn't the time delay. I think you guys are selling yourself short. Maybe you're listening to the noise in the public because they don't know. I think Donna's idea of getting it out there, tooting the horn, so to speak, is definitely worth it. I can't tell you how excited I am for what has been accomplished. And that's speaking as a BHAB member and a mother. So thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Joe. I think this community needs to hear that kind of thing. And it's unfortunate that more people don't let us know what we are actually doing. But thank you. Thank you very much. Do I have any further committee comment, please? And what I'd like to go back to is, do we want to meet? I'm fine with whatever this committee decides. But I want to know, do we want to meet every month? Do we want to meet every other month? Do we want to meet quarterly? Because we're getting to the point, in my opinion, and this is my opinion only, that we have everything in the mix. There are other programs that we may want to recommend, etc. So I want to know what you guys think. Please, Shannon.
Donna, I just want to try to wrap up this conversation about this other ad hoc committee, because I think it's relevant to the discussion.
That's fine.
To Jed's point, how do we know how often to meet if we don't even know what we're supposed to be doing? So I am willing to reconvene that ad hoc committee. We had an agreement, a verbal agreement, and a timeline in place that we could have had a strategic plan with a fiscal plan in place by May and restructured this committee already. But with all due respect to the supervisors, they plowed ahead with other plans and went a totally different direction. So this ad hoc committee did not meet again. I am willing to reconvene it and take those discussions up again, and hopefully we can get to some resolution. Although most of these projects have already been committed to, and so it's a little cart before the horse. So that being said, I will reiterate that this group is not, in my opinion, and no offense to any of the very intelligent, qualified people on this board, we are not having a meaningful impact on the work that's being done. So I do not think that monthly meetings are necessary.
So are you happy with bi-monthly, or excuse me, every other month, or what would your recommendation be?
Bi-monthly, quarterly, whatever the consensus of the group is.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Riley.
This is Lloyd. I would support. Lloyd. I would support going to another model for our meetings. Whether it be bi-monthly or quarterly, I'd support that.
Okay. There's many more on this board, please.
Hi, it's Mark. I'd like to go every other month.
Okay. Thank you, Mark. Ross, your opinion? Ross, are you there? Okay, I'm going to skip to Dr. Diamond. Your opinion?
I want to get resolved the direction that we're going to go. And so as soon as possible would be my recommendation. I like to see Shannon's recommendation of reconvening the committee and moving ahead that recommendation. So I'd recommend we meet monthly, which isn't too often in my mind, and get this resolved as quickly as possible. And then if we have then a new direction and a new function, then whatever comes out of that, whether it's meeting, quarterly or with some other duties, then that would make sense. But I'd like to get this resolved quickly, and meeting monthly seems to me would get it more quickly than meeting every other month.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry,
Commissioner.
I'm muted.
Oh, sorry, there you are, Ross.
Yeah, sorry about that, Mike.
No worries.
Technically challenged. So I actually would like to see us meet quarterly, and I'm very supportive of Shannon's the ad hoc committee to kind of turn the Kemper report. I guess what we're going to be left with is turn the Kemper report into a as close to a strategic plan as we're going to get. And the painful part of that all is that it won't be with a consultant. It will be with unpaid slave labor. That would be you, Shannon. So, I don't know how else to get there from here. I don't know where you'd find that consultant, and maybe it's a very abbreviated change, but I think that's probably best can do, and then meeting quarterly to put some metrics to inside that strategic plan to, realistically, the voters wanted us to keep the county and the staff's feet to the fire on results. And so that strategic plan should have some metric by which we judge those results. And we should find a way to report it out to the public in a way that they actually see it and read it and make it abbreviated. And we committed to do this. This is how we're doing at that commitment. We got to do that. We have to do that. So that would be my prayer.
Okay, thank you, Ross. Commissioner Barish.
So Donna, he cannot seem to unmute.
Okay.
And he did text me, and his response is that I would like to meet every other month.
Okay.
So that's his comment.
Thank you. Commissioner Angelo.
Well, thank you. I'd like to make a couple comments, if I may, before, actually, I'm okay with monthly, bi-monthly, or quarterly. Whenever we have the meetings, I'll be here. So that doesn't matter, but I guess if I had to, my preference would be bi-monthly. But, I think that it's been a really good discussion, and I appreciate the discussion. And I appreciate you, Chair Muschetti, allowing the discussion to go. I think that clearly there have been, some lack of cohesiveness since we started, and that hasn't changed. It's hard for me on this committee because I sit on the committee as one of 11. I'm not the CEO on this committee. I'm one of 11 people that make decisions. And I always feel challenged because I don't think that I could function as a CEO on this committee. I sit on the committee as a CEO, but I'm one of 11 people. So the challenge is that we all come to the table. This is a level playing field. We're all equal at this table. And so no one has any more authority than the other person, if you ask me. So, you try to move forward with the consensus, but we certainly don't always get there. I can say before Measure B was passed, as the CEO, not as a member of this committee, but as the CEO, before Measure B was passed, I never thought there would ever be enough money, enough tax dollars to do the things that this county wanted and that the public wanted and that what we thought we needed. And I would say today, I appreciate Shannon's efforts. I think they're good efforts. And whether we actually have a plan that matches the strategic plan that comes out of the Kemper report and the financial report versus managing this every single month, whatever we do, there will never be enough money. Sorry, I don't care. 90,000 people in this county, there will never be enough money. And Ross and I talked repeatedly before Measure B was passed. I said it then and I'll say it today. I think the challenge, and this might be some of the frustration for members of this committee, is that at every meeting over the last few years, at every meeting, something comes up as some other mechanism to spend money, some other thing to spend money on. I mean, you know, we renovated a whole training center. I will tell you, as CEO, when I purchased that building at the recommendation of Measure B and Sheriff Allman, who I have a great deal of respect for, I thought we were walking into, I thought we were walking into a building that was ready to go. If anybody remembers what that building looked like, rugs, paint, chairs, everything looked really good. But that's not what we did. We walked in and we spent another few $100,000 on a building. So when you look at that and you look at the spending, somebody tell me how we're going to have enough money. I don't care how anybody tries to manage it. There's no way. And so where we are right now is we're back to what did the initiative say? And this is where Shannon's right. The initiative said 11-member advisory committee that was to be look at the fiduciary responsibility of the board and the county and ensure that the money was spent in the manner that the initiative was developed and voted on by the public. And also a training center, which we've done, albeit not just a $400,000 training center, but by the time we're done with that training center, I don't know how much money is going to go into that training center. And then a PUF. And I want to say that I hope everybody understands that Whitmore Lane is a building that the county could use for multiple purposes. It's not Whitmore Lane is only for the PUF. We have delivered Whitmore Lane to Measure B and to the Board of Supervisors as an option. And I think what Dr. Miller said is key, and we have to remember this, that the consultants are looking at that building to see the cost analysis of that building. If we demolish part of that building, if we can get to OSHPD 5, is it better to go with that building? Is it cheaper? Is it a better use of taxpayer dollars? Or should we look at purchasing another piece of land and building from the ground up? So I want the public to know, and I want to ensure that the Measure B committee understands that I personally think Whitmore Lane is a good location. I think it's close to the freeway. It's close to town. It's a good location. But if our consultants who are experts in the field come back and say that the cost of doing this would be more than building from the ground up, then that goes to Measure B and that goes to the Board of Supervisors. But when you look at this, you know, the cost of a psychiatric facility, a 24-hour acute inpatient psychiatric facility, there's not enough money in the world. So, you know, with all of that said, I realize, and Chair, I appreciate you allowing me to speak on this. Yes, bi-monthly is great. I think that we should have a plan that we could actually do everything we can to measure the dollars. I do think this committee has been beneficial, if for no other reason, as a cog in the wheel to make sure that we push forward with the initiative. But in the end, 5 years from now, 3 years from now, 10 years from now, there's never going to be enough money. And I say that as someone who is over the general fund. So here's where, you know, we should be thanking Shannon for her attempts, multiple attempts to try to do this, because in reality, Shannon is trying to protect the general fund, you know, and so here we are. But we're going to move forward and do what the people wanted with this initiative. I do believe a lot has been done so far, more so than we have actually put out there to the public. And I think that bi-monthly, if we can figure out how we can manage the dollars and we can mitigate the general fund that will be needed over the course of the next 5 to 10 years, that would be something that this committee that is something that would be extremely beneficial if this committee could do that. And so thank you for listening, and Chair, thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Commissioner Angelo. Commissioner Miller, please.
I'm good with either, but I think every other month would be a good way to start. And then if we feel we could go quarterly, then we can move to quarterly. But I think we may not want to move to quarterly right away. I think start with every other month. And then once we have more information, a strategic plan or goals, and then we can make that decision to go quarterly.
Thank you. And I want to make sure I didn't miss anybody. I think I talk to everybody on the committee, correct, that's present? So it's up to you folks. I can't make the motion. If someone wants to make a motion to go by month, every other month, fine. If you want to leave it as it is, we'll leave it like it is.
Yeah, I would like to move things ahead, so I'd make a motion that we meet every other month.
Okay.
I'll second.
Thank you, Lloyd. Any other further comment, public or private? Public or private, sorry, public or committee?
Yes, we have Joe Bradley.
Joe, please.
I meant to say this when I got to on the other topic. I think for the moment, you should stay every month because you're looking at Whitmore Lane, and I think you may need to spend more time, with that, and then move to every other month as things are just going and just getting called if you need to be called upon. But right now, I see you as giving direction, and Whitmore Lane, as Carmel said, could be a lot worse. But at the same time, I just think you guys as an oversight committee need to keep your eye on that prize. And if it turns out to be the booby prize, then go from there. But that was my thinking on it, is to just stay monthly until you aren't needed for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Any other committee comment or public comment? So the motion on the floor is that we meet every other month. Could you please call for the vote, Lillian?
Yes. Commissioner Angela?
Yes.
Commissioner Barish? Oh, he still hasn't been able to unmute.
He's nodding yes.
He's nodding yes.
Yes.
Now he's speaking.
Commissioner Diamond?
Yes.
Commissioner Liberty?
Yep.
Commissioner
Yes.
Myrtle?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes.
Commissioner Riley?
Yes.
Commissioner Weir?
Yes.
And Chair Moschetti.
Yes. Thank you. So the motion carries. Thank you, everyone. We're going to have the any board reports coming up next. I want to thank all of you for our tireless efforts. We may not always agree, but let me tell you, the mental health community appreciates it. So thank you very much. And board reports, please, Lillian.
Commissioner Angela?
I just want to say, I want to reiterate what Dr. Miller said, that we believe that the analysis of Whitmore, whether the demolition of part of the building to get to an OSHPD 5 is practical and doable versus a recommendation from our consultants to start from the ground up. That recommendation should come the end of July. So we would be looking at another, if I've got my dates right, we would be looking at another Measure B meeting in August. I think I'm right with that.
Correct.
So I want to be certain that when we have the information and we know what the recommendations are, that we will bring that back to the committee. So even though we don't have a meeting in July, we won't have that information until at the earliest, the end of July. And I also want to say that, Dr. Miller mentioned this, but my goal with Whitmore Lane was actually to do substance abuse and to do programs for women and children where women could go into detox and rehab with their kids and have their children with them. And, it was a nice dream for Whitmore Lane and something that I actually worked in San Diego County and have seen the success and really wanted to see that up here. Giving it to the board and to Measure B with the hopes that we can have our psychiatric facility out of that building, that most likely is the highest use. And so I am still very hopeful that our consultants will come back with the recommendation that Whitmore Lane would be cost effective which they've said, but they haven't done a full analysis. And so I'm really hoping that this is something that we can do. And in spite of my comments about the cost of the training center, I recognize that this is part of the initiative and something we want to do. And my vote would be that when we go to full-on in-person open meetings, that are the first in-person meeting of Measure B be at the training center. I believe that the renovation of the training center is supposed to be done in August. So it's quite possible August or October when we have our first in-person Measure B meeting that we could do it at the training center. I think that would be really, really nice, and we could publicize it and certainly invite the public in. I also believe that we don't have a room in the admin center that's big enough to open up for an in-person Measure B meeting again, where members of the public could come in. I think when we do reopen and have an in-person meeting, we will probably have the room full, just like we did when we first started Measure B. So I realize this is not a motion, but I am putting it out there as a thought for the Measure B committee, that when we reopen and have in-person meetings, that we consider having those meetings at the training center. Thank you.
Thank you. Continue, Lily.
Commissioner Barish? No. Commissioner
Nothing to report.
Commissioner Diamond?
Nothing to report.
Commissioner Liberty?
Nothing to report.
Commissioner Myrtle?
Nothing to report.
Commissioner Miller?
Nothing to report.
Commissioner Riley?
No report.
Commissioner Weir?
Nothing to report.
And I believe Commissioner Allman joined us a few minutes ago.
Oh, I see a Tom on there.
Yes. And he's unmuted, so.
I apologize. My job took me away from the Zoom meeting for a little bit, and I listened to the CEO, and I appreciate you having a meeting, but I can't vote, and I have nothing to report. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Allman.
And Chair Moscotti.
I have nothing to report except thank you once again. Happy summer to everybody. And thank you very much. We'll see you in August.
And thank you, Donna, for your meeting acumen and your leadership.
Ugh. Thank you. Have a great June and July, folks.